Hey, what's going on, everyone? I had a very long weekend, so I'm kind of hoping that I can get everything dialed in here and working correctly today. A couple of the things we're going to be talking about. One, union repair and easy draw. So after last week's broadcast, Nate and I got into a bit of a discussion about board view software, and hopefully if I can make this work, I'll be able to give you a demonstration. I'm going to do that towards the end of the stream so that people who aren't really into the technical stuff don't have to sit through that. Also, the iPhone XS and XS Plus supposedly experiencing cell and Wi-Fi issues. Is it another antenna gate? I don't know. We'll talk about that. White House considering looking into Google, Facebook, and other social media networks. And this is going to raise a lot of questions, which will be perfect for our guest this Thursday evening. I'll be talking about that as well. The FCC angers cities with $2 billion in giveaways to wireless carriers. I'm starting to wonder whose side these guys are on at this point. They're doing a lot of weird stuff. Shazam is now a part of Apple and soon will be ad-free. Also, torture tests. Well, yeah, let's see if those really stack up to the real world, and we'll talk about that right after this. All right, let's talk some tech. Hey, what's going on? Anshu, Caesar, I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's name correctly. Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to start off with this. Thursday, I've been talking about this for a while. We finally got confirmation. So after last week's Thursday evening stream, obviously some of you are interested in conspiracy theories and or guests or all of the above. So I want to get back to having live interviews here on Thursday evenings. This week, we will have Richard Georges. It depends on how you want to pronounce it. It's actually a French name to the best of my knowledge, and a lot of people have trouble with it. So we're just going to call him Rick. He'll be here with us to talk about implications for artificial intelligence as it applies to litigation and really the future of law in general, because as technology continues to evolve and new things become possible, we of course have to have laws to address those new situations. One of the really interesting ones being the whole trolley paradox, where we have an artificial intelligence controlling or a self-driving car driving itself, and it has to make a decision between hitting object A and object B. How do we make those types of decisions? Does it have a lot to do with different cultures, how they value one thing over another? I mean, it's going to get really complicated, but Richard has a blog all about technology and law, so I thought he would be the perfect guest. He has agreed to come on, so we'll be doing our stream at the usual time this Thursday at 6 p.m. Really looking forward to this one. If you have legal interests, okay, this is not obviously a get-free legal advice stream, but if you have some topics you think that would be interesting to discuss when it comes to this category, please put them in the chat or put them down in the comment section below this video. You'll also find sources to the information that we'll be discussing down in that section. So in case anybody's going to ask, I'm usually going to point you there because you can go and read these full articles before or after I talk about them, obviously. Now, I do want to mention briefly Union Repair. This company is not sponsoring this video, but they've gone out of their way to provide me with some really cool tools to demo. I'm going to start today by talking about Easy Draw and then get into some of the other stuff that they sent me. I have some other vendors that sent me some really cool stuff too, so I want to bring that up later on. But when people say, where do you get a lot of the tools that you work with? Some you can buy online from various outlets, but this company has the hard to find stuff. It's one of the companies that has a lot of the hard to find stuff. So if you're looking for high quality tweezers, things that really go beyond what you would normally find in a regular retail site, you'll probably find them here, including a lot of small parts for iPads and phones and stuff like that. So shout out to them for being so awesome and sending me a lot of really cool, high quality stuff to work with. Hey, Harvey, how are you doing? He is, to my knowledge, not a legal conspiracy theorist, but I think that a lot of the topics that I'm sending him, that he replied back and said, yeah, that's an interesting tunnel to go down, sort of borderline that category. And I really think that it's difficult for us to avoid the idea of conspiracies as we look at these technological changes, what things are being used for, the issue of censorship, the fact that the White House is looking into or considering looking into Google and Facebook and foreign influences on elections and that kind of thing. So would you call it conspiracy? I don't know. I don't know that he considers himself a conspiracy theorist, but I think that, you know, it'll be an interesting discussion either way. So let's move this over here so we can have the comments on the screen. And I want to start off with this one. And again, you know, anytime there's a new phone released, we're always going to hear the critics, and then we're going to have defense from the fanboys. And it doesn't matter if it's Apple or Samsung or anyone else. It'll be, this is the greatest phone in the world. And then people will try to find reasons why that's not true. In this case, we have a report, and this is from The Verge, saying that iPhone XS and XS Max users are reporting poor cell and Wi-Fi reception. As far as how true this is, I really can't tell you. I haven't experienced it firsthand. I'm curious to know if anyone else out there is using one of these models and has noticed any difference in their Wi-Fi or their cell phone network reception. But according to the article, poor cell and Wi-Fi reception and noticeably slower speeds when comparing their new phones to their older models, which is interesting because this would kind of assume that they kept their older iPhone and they put them side by side to see, you know, how different they are performance-wise. I just spoke to Real World Review a couple days ago, actually yesterday, and he said that he did see an increase in some applications, I want to say, and that the benchmark was higher for the processor. So that seems to be not consistent with what this particular report says. Hey, what's going on, Oscar? Good to see you here. So we'll find out, you know, obviously over time. Later on in the article, it says user theories have ranged from simple explanations like networks being overloaded, which doesn't really seem too plausible to me. You know, networks are networks. They're always there. It's not like everyone went out and got a phone for the first time when the iPhone XS was released and suddenly the networks are congested. So that doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense to me. Or it could be more serious hardware issues echoing the antenna gate scandal that plagued the iPhone 4 launch, the antenna gate scandal. So that was the one, if you remember, where they said, well, don't hold your phone that way. And that was Steve Jobs humor, obviously. Who knows, maybe you'll get a free bumper out of this. Maybe there is some connection between this interference and the external antenna, which is kind of built into the frame itself. Again, it's pretty early to really make this call, but it will be interesting to see what happens. Now, later on in the article, they also say that they think that, I think it's this article, but I did a lot of reading from various sources here, and they're saying that maybe there will be a software upgrade that will fix this problem, which seems a little strange. You know, if you have an antenna issue, it doesn't seem like software would be what's causing it, but who knows? I mean, we see all kinds of strange things going on. Obviously, the antenna lines are always an issue with this, and that's because nobody wants to have a big rubber antenna sticking out of the top of their phone, so we had to make a few sacrifices along the way. Now, down here in the comments, I thought it was kind of interesting on this website. Again, this is from theverge.com. I am not Spartacus says, after checking the link to the Mac Rumors forum, I am confident to call this article a huge BS. Mac Rumors is one of the sites that I visit several times a day, and I never noticed anything about this problem until I clicked the link. This must be a joke. After millions bought their new iPhones, only 3 people are questioning if that might be an issue. Just 3, and The Verge jumps in, claiming that it's a widespread issue. Anyone familiar with Mac Rumors will tell you that any real small issue gets confirmed by hundreds of angry posts within hours, and that may or may not be true. It could be 3 people complaining. It might be more than that. It might just be 3 that were vocal or that he happened to have some documentation for. But then, of course, someone will jump in beneath there and say, I've seen it mentioned on Reddit. Also, calm down. You're taking this way too personally. And then other people commenting that, oh, thank God, I thought it was just me. I barely get Wi-Fi signal from my bed now, whereas I had full signal with my old X. So who knows? You know, it's entirely possible that either side of this issue here is being represented by someone who is in affiliation with the Apple Corporation or with one of their competitors. You know, it's really hard to know for sure until we see some confirmation, or, you know, if any company might happen to step forward and say, yes, in fact, we did see a problem here. We're going to fix it. Here's what the problem is. And the rare times that we don't generally see that, I shouldn't even say rare, but when we don't see a company coming forward and saying that, yes, we're going to acknowledge there's a problem with the design of this product, is when they don't have any easy fix for it. So if it's something that's built into the phone that cannot be corrected, I believe that it will be less likely that you'll see them admit publicly that, yes, this is a problem. And of course, when you do that, when you make a mistake, the moment that you admit to it, you open yourself up to some form of litigation. So again, every reason for there not to really be a response from Apple, which I believe is what this article ended with, is that they haven't heard anything officially. Yeah, we've reached out to Apple for comment, and we will update when we hear back. So I guess we'll just wait on this one and see what happens. Hopefully this won't be a problem. If it is, I feel bad for anyone who dropped $1,000 plus on a new iPhone to find out that the reception or the processing speed is not at least equal to what they had on their last phone. But that being said, when you're an early adopter, this is something that we have seen consistently on iPhones, is that every other generation or so, especially when it's a brand new form factor, which I think it would be a stretch to say that this is, because it's very similar to the iPhone X or iPhone 10, we generally see some sort of problems with those devices when they're first released. So, you know, if something comes out and there really is an issue with the Wi-Fi signal, then as Apple continues to manufacture this model, certainly we would expect them to make changes that would correct that problem. But for the first people to get the phones, it's often you're stuck with what you got, or if you can take it back under warranty, I hope that you do it soon enough that you get a brand new replacement model, if there's one available that works properly. Otherwise, you'll generally end up with a refurbished phone where someone has gone in and tried to fix the problem, but you don't really know the history behind that handset. And that's the big concern, I think, for most people. Whether you're doing an insurance claim protection plan or doing something under warranty, is, am I getting a brand new phone that is in the box, never been opened, not repackaged and resealed with heat shrink, but has it never been used before? Is this brand new off the production line? Because that's what I paid for when I got my phone, and that's what I would expect to get back if I'm paying some ridiculous amount of money for something like AppleCare Plus. So again, we shall see, right? Harvey said, The Verge has some questionable journalistic practices. Recently, they pulled a very inaccurate PC build video that had comments and voting disabled. Yeah, and this is the thing I ask everyone to keep in mind, and one of the main reasons that I always put my source links down in the video description is that nowadays, one of the biggest problems with journalism in general is finding anything reliable and staying away from clickbait articles, because obviously that's what gets views. So publishers are just highly prone to publishing or to creating titles and even content in their articles which may not be 100% accurate. So yes, obviously, let's be skeptical about any of the stuff that we read until we have something verified that says it's happening. But yeah, and I've noticed that not only that, Harvey, it seems like, I don't know what it is, but a lot of these online blogs and other types of publications, is that the English, the grammar, the spelling, a lot of times contains so many mistakes. It's like it was unusual to see a misprint in a newspaper, but when you get online, they're all over the place, and it's as if they're not using a spell check or something. I don't know what. I can't explain it, but it baffles me, because I'll start reading something and it doesn't make sense, and first I think it's me, and then I realize that, yeah, they just didn't really edit. They just whipped out the article fast and weren't paying too much attention to the details. So again, pretty early to make any judgments about the iPhone XS and XS Plus, but it does sound like the XR is going to be selling quite a few handsets, I expect, because I don't know how many people are really concerned with going with AMOLED or having the top of the line. And as that price point increases, it seems like we would have fewer people. And right now, a lot of sources are kind of recommending that you buy an iPhone 7. Now's a great time to buy a great phone for a good price, as opposed to one of these, unless you really feel the need for the notch and the facial recognition, I suppose. I think they outsource their articles to different countries. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And I gotta say, I may change my mind later on, but right now, I've got the iPhone 8 Plus, and it will probably, again, I'm just saying at this point in time, probably be the last iPhone that I use as far as latest generations goes, because it is the last one that they made without the whole notch and the Face ID built into it. And it also still has a home button. Not a big deal for me. I'm okay with not having a home button, but I don't want to pay for something that I'm not going to use, and I'm not using the Face ID. And the notch, to me, I would just prefer to eliminate it altogether. So that is just my humble opinion, of course. Lots of people will disagree with that, obviously. Okay, so next up here, I thought this was very interesting. The White House is considering according to Bloomberg. I think they're somewhat reputable publication here. Considering a draft order to look into Google, Facebook, and so on. From the article, the White House is considering a draft executive order for President Trump that would instruct federal antitrust and law enforcement agencies to open probes into the practices of Alphabet Inc.'s Google, Facebook Inc., and other social media companies. Now, we already know that the Trump administration is not too happy about mainstream news and social media, or really too much of what's being said about them in general, right? No matter where you look, the majority of the press is negative for the most part, for whatever reasons. Now, the document says that it will instruct antitrust authorities to thoroughly investigate whether any online platform has acted in violation of antitrust laws and protect competition among online platforms and address online platform bias. Now, you know, to an extent, it's kind of assumed that a lot of what is reflected by the press is in fact based on reality. You know what's going on. I mean, people don't just, it's not like the majority of media outlets, social media, or anything else would have a huge motivation to generate inaccurate information unless they have some sort of agenda, right? So if you said that this one particular organization is cooking up a lot of misinformation, that would be understandable. But for all of them to conspire together, if you want to talk about conspiracy theories, you know, to believe that all mainstream media is conspiring to put out false information, I think that would be a bit of a stretch. But the concern here that a lot of us should have, I believe, is that when you become dominant in something like being a search engine, you know, when everyone goes to you to find an answer to something, then at some point you are so powerful that you have the ability to control what people access for the most part. Now, it doesn't mean that they couldn't go somewhere else to get it, but we've all come to think of Google as the place. I mean, you know, if you look in the dictionary, I think they've even added something along the lines of Google it as being just part of daily speech. When we want to get information, we go to Google, right? And Facebook certainly is now grown. I mean, it's dropping off. People are closing their Facebook accounts, but up till recently, Facebook has become a huge medium for dispersing information, you know, false or not, to the point where a lot of people think that these companies need to be investigated, and we need to make sure, hopefully, I hope that this is really the goal here, to prevent large companies with advertising dollars from completely controlling the media, which is a concern that, you know, it even comes on here to YouTube, because advertisers are very picky about what they want to be associated with nowadays, especially because we have so much controversy between you know, the left and the right and all sorts of other agendas that are in existence at this point, that you can really get your channel shut down if you're on the wrong side of an argument, and in some cases if you're even talking about the subject matter, which is why I was, you know, slightly skeptical about doing the conspiracy theory thing. I believe that we're approaching it from a position where it would be difficult for anyone really to take issue with the fact that we're having a discussion and we're not necessarily endorsing any particular side of an argument or idea. But with that said, there's also some bias here, I believe, from people who are maybe more suspicious than they should be, and could probably concentrate on doing things that people approved of rather than saying, hey, we should hide from reporters who are reporting on what's actually happening. But that, again, just an opinion. Facebook spokeswoman said the company has no comment on the order. The press offices of Google and Twitter didn't respond Saturday. Again, probably in their best interest from a standpoint of litigation. Didn't respond Saturday to emails and telephone calls requesting comment. Trump's complaint: social media is totally discriminating against Republican conservative voices. They are closing down the opinions of many people on the right while at the same time doing nothing to others. And there may be some truth to that, although if you question why, that would probably be the more important question. You know, why would anyone's voice be silent, whether they're on the right or the left? Whatever their position is, why would they be shut down? You know, outside of something like hate speech, slander, anything else that could really be prosecuted or seen as having criminal intent. Why would you shut down someone who's trying to say something? Well, again, it wouldn't necessarily have as much to do with that organization, be it Google, Facebook, Twitter, or anyone else, but the advertisers who are putting money into these platforms are saying, we don't want to see this idea expressed. So this is where I really think that there is some confusion over what's going on in the media. When people start to accuse Facebook of doing something, or accuse, it could be CNN or Fox or whoever else it is. Certainly, a lot of these broadcasters and these media companies have their agendas. But in addition to that, they all have advertisers who are only willing to continue to spend money if they align themselves in a certain way, or they avoid certain topics, or they endorse certain ideas. And again, this is the thing that is actually spilling over into YouTube at this point. If you have a YouTube channel, there are certain things you cannot talk about, or you cannot endorse, or you cannot, represent without advertisers saying that we're not going to spend money there, and Google will then not only demonetize your channel, but also take you out of their organic search results and stop suggesting your video to other people. So that's a strange dynamic. You can understand if you were a company, or if you had your own company, and you didn't want to be associated with an idea that you didn't agree with, then it would be certainly within your rights to say, I don't want to spend money on this particular channel, or on this particular station, or social media site, or whatever it is, because I don't want to be associated with that idea. And at the same time, how do you do that and really somewhat maintain an outlet where people are free to speak about things that they want to talk about? It's a strange position to be in. They say, the social media companies say, there's no systematic effort to silence conservative voices. And later on in the article, because of their critical role in American society, it is essential that American citizens are protected from anti-competitive acts by dominant online platforms. So the first preliminary status is reflected in the text of the draft, which includes a note in red that the first section could be expanded if necessary to provide more detail on role of platforms. See, there we go. On role of platforms and the importance of competition. I believe that meant to say more detail on the role of platforms and the importance of competition. Growing movements on the right and left argue that companies, including Google and Facebook, engage in anti-competitive behavior. And that's another thing, if your platform is selling something, then certainly you would have an advantage to push those products to the top of the results, or to put them into people's feeds as they're browsing your social media. And that could obviously become a problem, because then you really control what people are going to be influenced as far as their buying decisions go. In July, Twitter algorithms limited the visibility of some Republicans in profile searches. I think this is according to who said that? The limits also affected some Democrats as the site tried to enforce policies against threats, hate, harassment, or other forms of abusive speech. So again, that's going to be a tricky thing to pull off, because you want to prevent this type of speech from happening, and then you're going to have people accusing you of, silencing them based on their political position. A Pew Research Center survey earlier this year found that 72% of Americans and 85% of Republicans think it's likely that social media companies intentionally censor political viewpoints that those companies find objectionable. So not a huge difference in percentage there. It's not necessarily one side or the other. 72% of Americans, 85% of Republicans, so slightly higher on the Republican side, but really everyone kind of thinking that this is a problem where social media companies are censoring viewpoints based on what they are getting behind on one level or another. I think they outsource. The ravings of a man with paranoid delusions. I don't want to get too much into that, but there's some strange stuff going on, Harvey. I agree. Facebook has said that it has no reason to believe its algorithm is biased, but in order to answer to critics, the company hired John Kyle, a former Republican senator from Arizona, to run an internal probe. So maybe we'll get an answer. Maybe there will be some consensus here where people say, yes, that really is a thing. No, it's not. But it certainly opens up a lot of questions. And again, this is probably something that we'll go into on Thursday when we have someone with some legal expertise, far beyond what I know about it, that we can talk about. I'll be interested to hear about that one for sure. So the FCC, apparently, our good friend Ajit Pai, is angering cities and towns with a $2 billion giveaway to wireless carriers. I just love how this keeps happening. The FCC seems to be controlled and practically owned by whatever you want to call it, lobbyists, political action committees, just wireless carriers, ISPs in general. It seems like they have enough money to get their way on just about everything. So if we thought the FCC was here to protect Americans, I think it's more to protect American corporations. Again, just my impression, but listen to this. This is nuts. The Federal Communications Commission plan for spurring 5G wireless deployment will prevent city and town governments from charging carriers about $2 billion worth of fees. So yes, I realize that when most people hear 5G, they're probably going to immediately say, yes, I want 5G, do whatever it takes to make it happen. We want faster internet, we want better coverage, we want our phones to work no matter where we go. That's great, but we really need to look at what's going on here at the grassroots level. How is that going to happen? Well, apparently the FCC wants to step in and control how much wireless carriers have to pay to set up their 5G network. So what does that mean? Well, if you're a city or a town or county or whoever is, normally the place that you have to go to use their property in order to build these cell sites, up till now, they have negotiated with these carriers and said, here's what's going to cost us, here's what it's worth to us. And it's not like wireless carriers are not making, a decent amount of money, right? Well, this would limit the amount that local governments may charge carriers for placing 5G equipment, such as small cells on poles, traffic lights, and other government property in public rights of way. It would also force cities and towns to act on carrier applications within 60 to 90 days. So not only will they be saying, here's how much money you can get, that's it, there's no negotiation, we're not going to take into consideration anything other than this. There's a flat rate across the country as far as how much cell site is going, how much locating a cell site on your city property is going to be worth to you, and that's it. You have no say in the matter. Not only that, but you would have 60 to 90 days to allow it to happen. So there's also a time frame on this to get it done. Whether you agree or not is what it sounds like from the way I'm reading this article. For many cities, public rights of way are the most valuable and commonly used public assets. So I just have this feeling that if a city depends on revenue to come from something like this, and suddenly this revenue is going to be less than it is realistically worth, at least to them, then where is that money going to come from instead? Chances are it will come from local taxes on some level. The FCC plan proposes upfront application fees of $100 for each small cell and annual fees of up to $270 per small cell. So that's it. So a $100 application and then $270 per year for each small cell that they add. Now we know that we need more cell sites for 5G because the effective footprint will be shrunk as you get to better technology, faster connection speeds, more bandwidth. You generally have a smaller footprint from the cell site. So where it used to reach to here, it gets a little smaller, so we have to add more sites to make that happen. I understand that everybody likes that, but to go into a city and say, hey, we're putting more cell sites in, here's how much money you're going to get, take it, there's no take it or leave it, you will take it, you have 60 to 90 days to make this happen. And they're saying, well, that equates to something around $2 billion worth of potential revenue that could have been going to cities and towns that will effectively be eliminated. How? Why? How does this happen? And if it does, this is my question. If the FCC steps in and says local governments must cooperate with wireless carriers and give them this deal that they're talking about, then how can these carriers not be considered public utilities that should be regulated? from top to bottom, just like ISPs. It's like we want the best end of the deal. The FCC seems to be on our side. We're going to make it happen, but don't bring any additional regulations in. We don't want this to be considered public utilities. I don't know. It sounds a little biased to me. So they actually reached out and talked to a few different people, and one of them was the city of Philadelphia. And according to Philadelphia, these proposed fees are simply de minimis when measured against the cost that the city incurs to approve, support, and maintain many small cell and distributed antenna system installations in its public rights of way. So obviously they're going to have some costs associated with having these cell sites located, but they're going to get $270 a year and that's it. So where does the rest of the money come from? Again, more than likely it will, in one form or another, come from local taxes, which means that you and I get to pay for it. Now, had they not gone with something, if something like this doesn't happen and they're able to continue to negotiate with these wireless carriers, then I would assume that those fees will still be passed on to the consumer through the wireless carrier in the form of increased monthly access fees. But that certainly seems like it would make more sense to tell the people who are using the system that their monthly fees are going up rather than mandating that any local government has to absorb these costs. Because when they do, that means the taxes get distributed to everyone. Everyone who lives in that area who is paying local taxes now gets to pay for these cell sites whether or not they're using them. So it seems a little strange to me. Philadelphia said it has already established a fee structure and online application process to apply for small cell deployment that has served the needs of its citizens without prohibiting or creating barriers to entry for infrastructure investment. And I assume that the FCC probably will say they don't care. Rural government also cries foul. A group representing 35 rural California counties told the FCC that its proposed recurring fee structure is an unreasonable overreach that will harm local policy innovation. So that is unfortunate. But again, as we look at the FCC for about the last year or so, it doesn't really seem to matter what local governments or citizens or anyone else wants. It comes down to the people who are investing the money to lobby or, in one way or another to influence the FCC's decision. And I'm sure, I have this hunch that Ajit Pai has something to do with this since he used to work for one of these large carriers before he started his new position as, the FCC chairman or whatever he is. Hi, when we get 5G throughout, surely it will make landline ISPs obsolete. Just a thought. Dave, I hope that we get to a point where we can make landline ISPs, optional at best. And I agree, this could potentially happen. The question is, what kind of charges are we going to be looking at for broadband data? I would love to walk away from a physical connection to my home. I mean, we've got 5G that will be faster, in most cases than any local ISP. What are they going to be charging us? What are the bandwidth caps going to look like? I don't know. But surely this is the age of wireless. We should definitely be going towards that. And best of all, if we get to a point where wireless data is sufficient for broadband and we don't need to have an ISP connecting to our residence or our business or anything else like that, it looks like we'll have competition because there's not just one company in every city that provides wireless data. For a lot of us, myself included, if you want broadband in your home through an ISP, you have one option, and that is a real problem for me. As you probably noticed, every time my stream goes offline because it doesn't work properly. But that's my problem, obviously. I hope carriers won't charge California taxpayers to fix their infrastructure. Landline ISP already obsolete to get, I get 220 down and 130 up from my WISP. 220 down and 130 up? Is that megabits per second? Because that's got to be, wow, you're talking about something else, because obviously I'm barely getting like 11 megabits per second up, but I'm getting like 400 down, which I don't need, and I told them that, but everything, obviously they concentrate on download for everything. 4G and 5G are all redundant technology. More users, slower speeds, fiber still needed for backhaul. All right, well, I hope they come up with some sort of solution so we don't have to be tied to this wire coming out of the wall. A power grab, I'm sorry, let me back up here a second. The pending FCC order, I was reading a statement from Blair Levin, who was the FCC's chief of staff from 1993 to 1997. The pending order presents a framework in which industry gets all the benefits, reduced fees to access state and local property with no obligations to reinvest the resulting profits in rural broadband. Shocker, right? Just take the money and don't spend it on anything. Don't reinvest it into your network. A power grab in which the FCC majority substitutes its judgment of what is best for local communities for the judgment of duly elected local officials. So, yeah, to say that this one organization for the whole country knows better than what the local government knows is good for their population does not make a lot of sense, right? That's a crazy thing. Anyways, it's a pretty long article. I've got a link if you want to go into this down at the bottom. But this is really sad when we have these huge corporations that are going to do what they're going to do, and even government agencies that you would expect to look out for the best interests of its citizens are, we're going to go with what the money says. What do you do? Megabits per second, WISP wireless connecting using Ubiquiti dish on my roof connected to a tower 10 kilometers away. Oh, interesting. That's kind of cool. Let's see. Let's move along here because I want to be able to show you guys something. Hopefully I can make it work today. And if it doesn't, then I'll have a lot of extra time. That's my plan. So Shazam is now officially a part of Apple and soon will be ad-free. I don't use Shazam too much. Interestingly enough, I think it's a really cool application, but I gotta be honest, I didn't even realize there was advertisements on Shazam because I use it so infrequently. It's pretty rare. I'm usually in the car driving when I hear a song and I want to know what it is, and then I just look at the screen on my phone because it's streaming and it tells me. But for the most part, Shazam is pretty cool. I always wish that they would have an equivalent for Shazam that you could use for video. If you see a video playing and you want to know what movie it came from, you just like aim your camera at that and it can look at the movie and tell you where to watch it. I think that would be the next generation of Shazam. Apple on Monday said it's completed a deal to acquire music recognition app Shazam, and the app will soon become ad-free for all users. Now, if you can make Waze ad-free, that would be great, because every time I come to a stop sign, I can't read anything because they're putting ads on the screen, and that's the only time that you're really going to stop and look at the screen for, more than half a second, right, while you're driving. European Union regulators launched an investigation of the acquisition in April over concerns the Apple Shazam marriage might unfairly give Apple Music a leg up in the music streaming business. The EU then approved the acquisition earlier this month. So maybe that's after Apple paid the money that they owed to Ireland. And I think that they're forcing Google to do something similar in the near future. Also, Apple is going to be launching their own, you probably heard already, they're going to have their own streaming service where they have their own content that they're going to be making, and it's supposed to be very family friendly. So they're not going to be allowing a lot of the adult themed content that you can access on Netflix and Hulu and Showtime and so forth. So that will be interesting to see, and at the same time, questionable as to how you would be able to succeed with that. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but if you consider the majority of what people are watching nowadays, I wonder how much of very family-friendly stuff isn't, one, already going to be dominated by Disney, and on top of that, is it possible to have a platform that has nothing but very, very family-friendly, safe-for-work stuff that no one is going to be offended by? That will be interesting to see. I've seen backhaul wireless hitting 1 gigabytes per second using Ubiquiti Airfare X dishes. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Well, I hope that happens here soon because, yeah, we have enough wires. I think there was one other thing here that I wanted to get through quick, and then we'll move on. Oh, yeah, so have you seen these drop endurance tests for the iPhone XS and the iPhone XS Plus into beer, wine, soda, boiling water, and everything else? I have one question here, and they don't say a whole lot, I don't think, in this article. I believe it's just a video for the most part. Let's see, is there any content here? No, it's just I I swear I clicked on this and it showed me some content. Some written, there we go. So it disappears after a while. I got to read this fast. Wet phone doesn't mean a dead iPhone anymore. No, that's true. But it does mean that your warranty will be voided if the water gets inside. So obviously we have IP68 now on the latest model iPhones, which means that if you drop your phone today, if you have an iPhone XS, brand new out of the box, and you drop it in the sink and you pick it up right away and dry it off, you should be fine. And they do recommend, obviously, before you plug the thing in, make sure you dry off everything, including the area where the charger connects to it. But I always kind of am very skeptical about these types of tests, because one thing that we know for sure is that every generation of phone is supposed to be water resistant, and every generation of phone we eventually see coming in with water damage. And I suspect that there's more than one reason for this, and I would caution people, you know, if you're making a video to prove a point and you want to do a durability test or a liquid damage test or anything like that, obviously you know the risks that you're going to be, you know, they're going to be involved in this kind of thing. But beyond that, there are a couple things I don't think that people take into consideration. One is that these phones are brand new out of the box. They haven't been dropped before. They haven't been bent. They haven't been walking around in someone's back pocket and been sat on. And they also haven't had time for the adhesive on the inside to eventually kind of dry up and pull away from the surfaces where that water seal is so important to prevent any moisture from getting inside the phone. So while a brand new phone may perform you know, with a certain result in this type of test, what happens when that phone is 6 months old, it's been dropped a couple times, you know, even if nothing's shattered, if it's just had some impact, and furthermore, as we expose it to changes in temperature regularly from hot to cold, back and forth again, obviously that adhesive gasket that's on the inside of the phone, you pop your SIM card tray out, you have a little rubber gasket there that starts to lose its shape over time. There are a number of factors that come into play as the phone gets older and older. So when people say, hey, you know, this phone is water resistant up to IP68, that's great the day that you buy it, but I strongly suspect that a month, you know, not to mention 6 months or a year later, your phone is probably not going to perform the same way, you know, averaging as compared to anyone else. All things being equal, people drop their phones on occasion. They expose them to different temperatures. I don't believe that these phones maintain an IP68 rating indefinitely. So there's something to keep in mind, and probably another reason why we're going to see a lot of phones, you know, iPhone XS and iPhone XS Plus that have gotten wet in the future, because everyone assumes that means waterproof, and that is usually not the case. We got stupid comments. Sorry, I didn't even see them, but thank you guys for doing that for me. I really appreciate it. I can't keep up with the comments just to answer them most of the time. Might guarantee you have a Wisp near you. Cost same as landline. Mine's $89 a month. Unlimited dish around $300. Install about $200. DIY dish costs a bit more if you need a pull. All right, well, I'll check it out, Wayne. There may be something like that, and if there is, let's see. ubnt.com Air Max. I will check this out. 5G Air Max, and that could be interesting. I am certainly going to look into this, Wayne, because I just had last week, if you guys showed up last Monday, I had internet for about 12 seconds and then had to cancel the stream because whatever. And I thought that might happen with Nate last week, but it didn't. We got to do our first conspiracy live stream. If you haven't seen that, you should go check it out. It was a lot of fun, and we got tons of views, which told me that people are either bored with me or they want to hear more about conspiracy stuff. So we'll definitely be coming back to that. Most likely next week. I think I'm going to have Real World Review on here so we can dig into another conspiracy theory. Not sure which one. There are so many. I want to do something that's relevant to tech, you know, if not cell phones. And there's plenty of stuff out there that is. Dude, USA company huge in wireless. Cool. I'm going to check it out. So before we run out of time here, while I was talking to Nate last week, he reminded me of something that I've been meaning to do for a while. So I'm going to attempt. Let me close this for just a second so that, let's see, will that work? Yeah. Oh, look at that. I got my all-seeing Illuminati eye there. So I want to open this up, and hopefully I'll be able to show you on a small enough screen. I think this will work. So let's see if we can put this here. So I got something called Easy Draw, And again, this came from Union Repair, and I've been meaning to do a review for this for a long time. So if you're working on board level repairs, obviously you need to have something where you can see what the board looks like, and you can kind of get an idea of what's connected to what, where these different traces route to, and be able to test for resistance values and all sorts of stuff like that. Well, there's a number of different options out there. There's a free one, I believe it's called Pads. I know there's another one that is published by, or was created by, gosh, I'm going to go blank on his name, but someone who works in the industry who actually designed his own software. And then we've got things like ZXW. Well, I suspect that we'll see a lot more of this stuff emerge, but Nate had asked me, and I'd completely forgotten that this was something that I wanted to do a demo on. So I'll be doing a full demo video so you can see all of the features. But for right now, I want to kind of give you guys just an introduction to what this looks like. If you haven't already seen it, this is the Easy Draw board view. And I'll tell you one thing right out of the box, you will see this. Okay, so this is the one thing that when I got this software, they warn you, and this is a crazy thing. They tell you, and this happens with ZXW and a number of other softwares, is that you'll get an antivirus warning, ignore it, there's no virus on the program. Well, okay, I believe that is true in this case, but obviously if there was some sort of virus on the software, I would assume that the guy that made it would say the same thing. So there's always that factor, right? But I have not seen any ill effects so far. Don't take my word for it. I've got AVG running in the background. It secures whatever threat this is. It does something similar. It doesn't actually do anything on ZXW, which it should, because there's supposed to be a line in there that's not 100% in your best interest. But for whatever reasons, it doesn't. AVG does catch a couple things on here, and I don't know what those mean exactly, but they're blocked from functioning, so I'm not too worried about it. So getting back to this, let's see if we can get it on the screen so you can see it. If you've used something like ZXW before, you'll notice it is very similar as far as the interface goes. This one, iPhone 4 login interface, yeah. This one is, the default is English, which made it a little easier for me. With ZXW, you've got to know where to go to set it to English so that you can see what you're doing. Now, the big difference here is that if you're using something like ZXW, you will have to have a dongle. So there's a USB part here that's got to be attached to your computer in order to open the software, and that's how they control the licensing. On this one, it's a little different. What they do is they have you log in as soon as you open the program, and then anything that you want to view has to be downloaded in real time. Now, they're not huge downloads, and I'm not sure where they go when you log out, but that's how they control the licensing on this one. So you don't have access to anything until you tell it that you want to see it, and then it downloads the supported file, and then you'll be able to get a look at things. And as soon as you close the program, that stuff's gone, and you have to re-download it again later on. ZXW, etc., connect to Chinese servers for authentication. Hence, all antivirus thinks it's a threat. Yeah, and I'm assuming that's probably the same thing here. Anytime, and it's probably only going to get worse in the future, right? Anytime you deal with China, oh no, it's going to be a virus, and maybe there will be some out there. I don't know, but I will say this: I like one. You don't have to worry about carrying a dongle around with this thing. Neither of these programs can be opened offline. You've got to connect to their server regardless. So for that part, it's the same. I believe, and I may be mistaken, so don't take my word for it right now. I need to go back through and check the notes, but I believe that this license allows you up to 5 installations. So if you have multiple machines, obviously you can't use them all at the same time, but if you, like myself, I go from home to the store, I don't have to carry a dongle around. I've installed the software on both locations on 2 different computers, and wherever I'm at, I can open this up and use it, which to me is a huge benefit. I don't have to worry about, oh, did I forget to bring my dongle with me today? I've got it installed, I open it up, it works. I go home, I open it up, here it works, and so far so good, no problems with it. Now you will see a lot of the same stuff, really. As far as information goes, the layout is different here. For example, if I go in and I take a look at iPhone, let's go to something like the iPhone 7. Just like ZXW, they've completely mapped out one version and not the other. So depending on whether you have the Qualcomm or the Intel version, you won't have the same amount of information. Obviously, I might have to make this screen a little bigger here. Let's go ahead and open this up so you can kind of get a peek at what I'm doing. So as you can see, it took a second for this to download, and now we've got a view of both sides of the logic board here. And if we zoom in, we'll take a look at something like this right here, and you'll see part of this is going to be off screen, but if I click on any of these connectors, you'll see at the top where this is going to go and what it's connected to. And this one down there in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see it says ground, so we know where the ground connections are on this. And if we go to something else like this capacitor here, it'll tell you bit number C4003-1, resistance rating, package size, and so forth. And then down at the bottom, it will show you what that actual line is connected to, which in this case is PP3VO underscore TriStar underscore ANT underscore proximity. So I assume that is a proximity sensor interface of some sort. So other than that, not a whole lot of differences in getting used to how this stuff works, but a few features that I don't have access to at this point in time when it comes to ZXW. It's safer if you use virtual machines to isolate yourself from malware. Yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. That's probably what I should be doing, actually. If it wasn't for China, yeah, we wouldn't have iPhones really at this point, right? Harvey, you said something about the you said I missed a comment. Oh yeah, family friendly content, a blank screen. Yeah, for the most part when it comes to that. So here's an interesting thing. We do have the resistance rating figures. So if you click over here and you go to, let's see if this is the right one. Again, it's got to download stuff to get to it first. Then it's going to decrypt. Oh, so this is something else. This is my block diagram. Let's go to full resistance figure, motherboard captures. And then if you zoom in on here, you can see under each integrated circuit what the resistance values are, which one of these are going to ground, which ones aren't connected, and so forth. So slightly different, in this respect when it comes to ZXW. Here's your key for what everything means. Empty foot obviously would be not connected. Then we have the black ones are ground, and then anything in white would be OL, or infinite resistance, which means it doesn't connect at some point. So this part I kind of like. Location map, let's take a look at this real quick. Full resistance figure. So this is going to be, let's get this whole thing on the screen here. This is going to be for the Qualcomm version, which that's as far as I can make this thing go. So you can see Qualcomm version. Now, beyond this, and I can't get too detailed because we only have so much time today. I will do a full video review of this software so you can see it. But here's something that I thought was really interesting that you do get from EasyDraw, but not from ZXW to the best of my knowledge. One, the schematic diagram, which is supposed to be built into ZXW, but never works in my experience. There's something about the Blackfish add-on that I got it to open like twice, and since then I've had problems no matter what server I've connected to. I don't understand why, but I can't get the schematic view to open on ZXW. With EasyDraw, I have not run into any problems. So they've actually built the schematics into the software. And of course, if you scroll through here, you'll see, I mean, everything. This is the manufacturer schematics. And of course, we can zoom in here and take a close look at all of the components that are built into any of the supported models. Now, obviously, they don't have every phone here, but most of the popular ones that we'll be working on, like ZXW, the phone's got to be out for a while. You're not going to get the iPhone XS schematic or anything else built into this. In fact, I think the latest that they have is the iPhone X or iPhone 10, and in that case, you don't get everything just yet. So these things take time to leak. But beyond that, check this out. If we go into Samsung, where I was, and I'm going to open up Galaxy, let's try Galaxy S8, because I think they have it on this one. G950F, we have circuit diagram, disassembly, and assembly grid, which is interesting because if you're just doing basic phone repairs, they have sort of a guide here as far as how to go about taking the phone apart in the first place. So this, in my opinion, is a little more comprehensive. They've got stuff on here that will tell you remove the battery and attaching tape process. Let's see, let's scroll down here a little bit. Prerequisite, parts for disassembly, etc. So this is just real basic stuff as far as disassembling and putting the phone back together. But beyond that, take a look at this. We have a manual of phone repairs. Phone repairs kind of spelled wrong, but we have a manual of phone repairs in this software. And if you take a look at this, it, I believe, came from a source that has a lot of information, and in fact, even a flow chart of how to approach a repair. So the phone does not power on, check the battery voltage. Is it more than 3.8 volts? If no, then try charging the battery, right? If the voltage is extremely low, under 3 volts, change the battery. And then if the battery did have voltage, you would proceed to the next step here where it says yes, power on the phone, and check the power on sound or motor vibration. Sound or vibration is okay. Yes, you go over here, you change the front LCD assembly. Okay, I know, really bonehead, right? But look at this. When you get down here, check the voltage level at R304 while pressing power key. Is the voltage high? No. Then replace the power key. Yes. Then here's where you want to check next. The output voltage of U7002. L7000 should be greater than 0.75 volts. L7004 should be greater than 0.75 volts. And if you go through this list, you'll get a lot of information as far as diagnostic goes, kind of pointing you in the direction of where the possibilities are as far as what's wrong with this, where do we go next, and which components are we looking at to figure it out. So I found that this is, I believe, going to be very helpful. Now, we don't get as many Samsungs coming in for obvious reasons. When we do, they're often going to be screen repairs for the most part. But you get down here to this step where it's green. It says check the clock. OSC 7000 and 7002 is the frequency, 19.2 megahertz. And obviously they're saying test the condition using an oscilloscope, which if you don't have one, I guess now would be a time to consider investing in one. But I thought this was really cool, how they have kind of added a little more information than you'll find with ZXW. Now, I do suspect that both of these companies are getting information, either from the same source or they're sharing the information that they have. Because if you go into, whoops, already open that drawing. If you go into this stuff in detail, you'll see duplications, so are they mapping out these resistance values for themselves, or are they seeing that someone else already published this, or they're just going to copy it and put it here? Well, I found something else interesting recently. A lot of the schematics, if you take a look at them, a lot of modern schematics, the things that we thought were being provided by some hardworking individual are occasionally included in the schematic itself. So I think, let's go through a couple pages here. If I remember correctly, come on. Yeah, it's not moving for me. I have to do this by hand. This wasn't it. I opened up a phone the other day, and it showed me the connector for the LCD, the digitizer, and a whole bunch of other stuff with the resistance value shown inside of the schematic. So, who did the homework? I don't know. I wouldn't rely on it 100%, but it's there, and it certainly helps as being a reference. Less than 3 volts, no charging, just push in 5 volts from bench power supply on phone, battery, voila, it will start charging. Yeah, it's funny you said that, Wayne. We used to have, in particular, lead acid batteries that would get into a deep discharge state where they wouldn't charge because the charger couldn't detect any voltage coming from the battery, so obviously there's nothing to charge. And we would literally zap them with the power supply. So we just take the leads and we'd crank up a few amps on that and just touch it till it sparked, and that would give it enough surface charge so that when you plugged it in, it would start taking a charge. And it seems that lithium-ion batteries can occasionally behave in a similar manner. So I thought I'd just give you a brief preview to that. I'll be working on that. Oh, and one other thing that I meant to grab, 1 second, folks. I was going to include this last week, and then my stream got cut because things were not cooperating. But I also have this, so this will be coming up in a video very soon. This is the, what's the number on it, Mike? It is the 948X, and this is from Rewa. This is one for heating up the logic board on the iPhone 10 so that we can split it in half, which I believe is going to be all the new rage, because obviously as the iPhone 10 is coming out of its warranty period, we're going to start seeing a lot of things go wrong, and people who bought $1,000 phones willing to invest the money that it's going to cost to fix these things, and we've got to have a reliable way to separate that board. Now there are some hacks that you can use to get there, but really we want to do things the right way if possible. So I'm excited to try this out and make that video and then let you know what I think. Rewa really seems to be on top of it when we talk about people in China who are developing technology, or at least able to offer information and equipment that allows us to keep up with all these new designs that manufacturers are making. So I am very excited about that one. Only need 20 seconds on battery, 20 seconds on phone battery from bench power supply to kickstart most batteries. I just did the same on my 28 volt Milwaukee drill batteries, dead fixed now. Yeah, so obviously when we look at these field service manuals or wherever this information came from, it's not necessarily the only solution. They're suggesting to replace the battery. Yeah, if you can give the battery a boost and it will take a charge, then obviously that would be the route to go, right? But if it can't hold voltage up to at least 3, then I would imagine you're in trouble at that point. All right, so once again, everyone, if you just got on, didn't Rewa on Jessa's channel the other day? Yeah, you know, I saw Jessa had something on her channel the other day where she had a guy from Rewa doing a repair, but it was a super long stream. I think it was like a couple hours long, so I didn't get through the whole thing. I just watched bits and pieces. I think he was just demonstrating transfer of a CPU from one iPhone to another, if I remember correctly. But obviously that stuff takes time, so you know, it's if you don't have the time available, it's hard to watch the whole stream. But I did see that. It was one of the guys from Rewa, I believe. So I suspect that they're kind of reaching out and promoting their company, and they've got great stuff. You know, I've seen stuff on there. In fact, someone was telling me they actually buy their replacement parts from there. Is it hot enough to grill pancakes on the heating pad? I would think so. This thing gets up to, what is it? They want it at 150C, so that's what, about 330 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that? I would say yes. Recall CPU on Keith Urban phone. Okay, so when you say, oh, reball, right? Yeah, that's right. They reballed CPU. That's what it was. I do remember that. But as you saw, if you watch that video, it's not a fast process. They were working on that for quite a while, and I think the guy from Rewa is considered to be, you know, one of the best people able to do that job. It was a hard stream to watch. The audio wasn't the fastest. Yeah, I am a fan of Jessa's videos. I literally just wish I had more time in the day to watch them, because, you know, even set on 2x, sometimes they take a while. Oh, it was a fail? No, was it? I thought that, you know, it's pretty bad. I didn't watch it all the way to the end, so I wouldn't have known. Anyways, folks, this Thursday, I hope you can join me. It'll be the regular time again, 6 p.m. Pacific. Obviously, we have our weekly live stream at 2 p.m. every Monday. I'm really excited about this one. We're going to have the future lawyer, Richard Georges, or Richard George, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And he's got all kinds of cool, I don't want to say borderline sci-fi, but, you know, very cutting edge technology stuff where we have to start thinking about how laws are going to pertain to this. You know, for example, if and when AI become smarter than us, which probably won't take long, will machines have any sort of rights? And what sort of coding will we have built into them to make sure that they don't get out of control? And will we have a way to pull the plug on it? And who do you sue when your self-driving car causes an accident? I don't know. Good questions, right? Not sure if we'll have the answers, but we will certainly have a discussion about it. Didn't work. Well, that's a bummer. I can imagine, you know, it's challenging to try to remove. I don't remove CPUs from iPhones. I don't want to mess anything up worse than it is, but I guess if that's your last attempt, right? Keith won't be using that iPhone to sex Nicole anytime soon. All right, well, hey everybody, it is 3 o'clock. I got to get back to work. I got a pile of stuff from the weekend. Thank you for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. I don't think I've left anything out, but if I did, I will be sure to mention it on Thursday. Hope to see you there. Again, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If not, then I'll catch you next week. Everyone have a great one. I will talk to you soon.